Brilliant. Okay. So as a prospective MP, what is the legacy you would like to see left for the next generation?
Well, from an environmental perspective, I've been heavily involved locally with the Hauraki Golf Marine Park, and I would like to, if re-elected, I've approached ministers and asked for a review of that legislation, because I think we need to do a lot better in terms of cleaning up our golf. I've also approached the Mayor previously about waste management policy, because I think we are actually letting the city down by plastics entering the Gulf, and I think we can do better in terms of marine protection in the Hauraki Gulf.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And what risks do you think climate change poses to the well-being of young people?
I think, look, the first thing I'd say is I've got a background in science, so for me, I meet a lot of people in the electorate that have a very diverse range of views on climate change. Some people think it's a hoax, other people feel very passionately about it, and I say to people, look, I believe in taking a science-based approach, and I do think we should be concerned about climate change, and I'm confident that we are providing a course as a government that will make a difference for our country, but also won't set the environmental agenda back. And one of the concerns that I have is if you move too fast and you don't bring the public with you, then what can actually happen is you can set the environmental agenda back, because if people have a whole lot of costs that are added onto them and they can't afford them, then they may associate environmental issues in a negative way. So I'm confident that we're providing that balanced path.
Okay.
All right. Do you think that the action New Zealand's current government is taking on climate change is sufficient and does justice to future generations? If not, what goals and actions would you push for in the next term?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Under our government, we have had some achievements. So we're now seeing a reversal of deforestation. We've also seen a significant increase in the amount of renewable energy. I think it's 79% as at March 2011. We've also seen a significant increase in the number of renewable energy consents. So we have seen some progress, but there's a lot more to do. And our policy that we've just announced builds on that, and we've been very clear that there are some areas that we want to do some more work on, like encouraging the adoption of electric car technology. We also are very focused on the green growth area, and that's an area that I'm pretty passionate about, particularly in Auckland Central with a number of commercial buildings, and we've identified within our policy that that's an area that we'd like to improve on, to ensure that we reduce the carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm. So, looking at the broader economic incentives, do you think that the ETS in its current form is an equitable system that delivers the right signals to emitters? Are there any changes that you would advocate to make it more effective?
Well, I think if you look across the world, there are a number of different systems that are advocated, but we're confident that the ETS is the best of those systems that we have found. I think we've been very clear that there's going to be phasing in, in terms of certain areas like transport, because we think we've really got to move at the right pace so that we don't provide adverse effects to households. And I'm confident that we're moving at a pace that people can afford, because one of the things I always say to people is if you look across the world and you look at the biggest polluters, a number of them are poorer countries. So if we don't get that balance from an economic and environmental perspective, then I think the risk is, if we go too fast, that we actually set the environmental agenda back in New Zealand.
Okay. Moving on to a kind of more small issue. What are your opinions on the expansion of fossil fuel industries in New Zealand?
Sorry?
And I guess more specifically, would you personally support the call for a 10-year moratorium on new coal and lignite development?
Well, some people will be aware that I opposed mining on Great Barrier Island, and the reason that I did that is that I've always considered myself a blue-green, and by that I mean someone who takes a very pragmatic approach to some of these issues. I'm interested in overall environmental progress for New Zealand, but for me the case for Great Barrier Island, both the economic and the environmental case didn't stack up, and I stood against the party on that particular issue. But what I do believe is two things. Firstly, that we listened as a government, and you would have seen that our policy changed as a result of that. So I think it's really important that we are able to have mature and intelligent conversations about these issues, because, as I said before, if you don't enable mature conversations, particularly at a time when we've got a lot of people struggling in New Zealand about mineral exploration, and we don't actually have proper conversations about what is the actual environmental footprint, because there are other environmental activities which have some significant environmental footprints. If we don't enable that conversation to happen, then I don't think New Zealand will be well served. And all I've said is I think it's really important that we have the debate, and that we have the debate with evidence-based and a science, an evidence-based approach, and we look at the science around us, because I'm interested in the overall progress for the environment for New Zealand.
What do you see as the main future sources of energy for electricity, transport and heating for New Zealand? And do you support a call for the government to create an action plan to attain 100% renewable energy before 2050?
I think one of the things, as I said before, that we've done really well as a government is we've seen that significant increase in renewable energy consents. And actually it's a massive opportunity for our country, I believe. We've also seen that, I think it's this 1,340 megawatts produced in renewable energy this year. That's a significant achievement. But recently I sit on the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, and we had a delegation over from Queensland. So I think there is more opportunity, particularly in the area of encouraging electric car technology to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. And also, I also think that we probably haven't had as much pickup as other countries in the area of solar. And there are some parts of New Zealand that are very, whether it's Nelson, that have real opportunities in the area of solar. So I think there is more that can be done in this space, and I'm confident that as a result of progressing the ETS, but also I think as a result of some of the work that's been done in the green growth area, we may be able to further progress the renewable energy plan, and whether that's an action plan in the future, I'm just confident it is an important area for New Zealand, and we've done well in the past, but we can do better.
So, talking about the green growth agenda, do you think the government should be doing more to promote research and development and the deployment of the low carbon technologies like solar that you mentioned?
And if so, what?
If you look at the research and innovation agenda, one of our achievements as a government is, I believe there's been, as a result of our investment in research and innovation, about $1 billion extra that's been spent from business and R&D under our term. And that's hugely significant. And I do believe there's actually quite a lot of opportunities, and I've met many small companies in the area of the environment, whether it's waste management technology, whether it's other clean technology. So I think there is more opportunity, and that's what the Green Growth Initiative will enable us to do, I think, to actually have a look at that, where our research and innovation spend is. But the other point that I make is the other day I was with the Prime Minister when we announced a new advanced high-tech institute. And what that's about is giving young entrepreneurs a greater opportunity in this country to develop their ideas. And what I find is there are a lot of young people that have a strong interest in the environment. So I think through some of the initiatives that we've already announced, and particularly recently, there may be an opportunity to particularly support young entrepreneurs to undertake their initiatives in the environmental area.
Do you perceive New Zealand's dependence on oil as a risk to our economy in the age of increasing oil prices? And if so, would you support the reallocation of spending on new roads towards low carbon and public transport initiatives?
I think when you look across the world, most nations would say that they want to be as independent as possible from an energy perspective. And I do think we need to ensure that we have a diverse supply of energy. In terms of where we spend our money from a roading and a public transport perspective, I am confident that under our government, particularly in Auckland, we've made the most significant investment in generation. We've spent over $1 billion on the electrification of rail. We've also increased public transport subsidies. I've been heavily involved in the Victoria Park Tunnel project. Now that project is worth 340 million, and it is technically a roading project, but it's also going to significantly reduce congestion. So I don't think it's an either or. I've said very clearly I do support the Central City Rail Link, and we're working on the business case on that, and we've got to improve, we've got to really look at the growth figures for Auckland Central and also a comprehensive public transport plan. But I'm confident, whether it's also the feasibility of trams in Auckland, that particularly in our largest city that does have high transport emissions, that if we progress with the feasibility around trams and progress with the business case in terms of Central City Rail Link, and progress with a comprehensive transport plan for Central Auckland, then we can make some significant progress.
I guess right at the start you kind of mentioned that the public's perspective and that people might see climate change as a cost. So what actions would you take in your electorate to enable your community to increase their understanding of climate change?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, as I mentioned before. I think that ensuring that people associate environmental issues with a positive is really important. So whilst we have, as a result of introducing the ETS, it has meant that there are more costs on households, it's being really clear about the bigger picture. And I spend quite a lot of time with young people. So I have, during my last 3 years, talked to a number of young organisations, young groups. Have gone into both university, and I'm going to continue that if I'm re-elected, because I think it's really important for the next generation of New Zealanders to have an understanding of the big issues and the direction that we want to take our country. And I've always said, look, I'm a blue-green, and that's my commitment. But also to work across the political spectrum on these issues, because sometimes environmental issues can get very polarised. And my experience of talking to young people, they want us to work together on the environmental issues. And so the other thing that I really try to do is, I've had a really good relationship with some Green MPs. I've worked with Kevin Hague particularly on cycling initiatives. And I think that's really important to have some projects that you work across the political spectrum on. And so if I'm re-elected, I'm going to do both of those two things, ensure that I get out and talk to a lot of young people like I have this term, but also work with other MPs across the spectrum on environmental issues.
Okay.
Cool. That's the end of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's a quick little page card actually. That sort of summarizes those questions, and that means when we put it on the website, it's.
Can I'll scan this in and send it to you. Okay?
Alright, cool.
Yeah, we did. Thank you.
Actually, I don't have the website on here, but oh well. The internet isn't working in the office.